What's up, guys? This is VinylicPuma, and today I wanted to go over what I think are among the top 10 best guns and weapons for Wilhelm the Enforcer in Borderlands, the pre-sequel. Now, before we start, Wilhelm is really good with a variety of different lasers, and unlike some of the other Vault Hunters, he has some unique skills that allow him to not only augment his abilities, but also allow him to alter his appearance. In fact, Wilhelm is unique in the sense that he is the only character that can run while hip firing, or deploy a shoulder cannon that just tears through enemies, provided that his shield depletes. You may also be surprised to know that, sort of like Axton from Borderlands 2, Wilhelm is relatively decent with explosive weapons as well, and can use them to great effect, provided that the proper class mods are equipped. But I guess without further ado, these will be the top 10 best guns and weapons for Wilhelm in Borderlands the pre-sequel, starting now. Number 10. The Torrent SMG. The Torrent is one of the better SMGs from Borderlands the pre-sequel's vanilla game, and if I had to describe it, it's very similar to Borderlands 2's Emperor, however with some notable improvements. Specifically, the Torrent spawns without a weapon sight, which allows the player to move much faster than normal while aiming down the sights. And perhaps it's just me, but the Torrent seems like it handles recoil a lot better than the Emperor, and fires much faster than the Emperor did. You'll also find that the Torrent has virtually no, or at least minimal burst delay, which will allow you to fire a lot of bullets at enemies relatively quickly. Plus, the Torrent tends to go really well with some of Wilhelm's skills. For example, you may like to charge and hipfire at enemies with the Shock Absorber skill, or you may like the synergy this SMG has with some of the fire rate boosting skills like Overdrive or Suppression. My only complaint with this gun is that there is no weapon sight. While this attribute does allow you to move relatively quickly while aiming down sights, I also think that you'll find that this attribute makes it far more difficult to hit enemies at anything beyond short to medium range. If you would like a Torrent though, you can acquire one from an NPC named Meg in the Hyperion Hub of Heroism during the side quest simply named Kill Meg. Number 9. The Slapper Pistol. Originally, I was going to include the 88 Fragnum in this spot, however, I ultimately found that for Wilhelm, the non-unique Torg Slapper Pistol may actually be a better choice, simply because it's very difficult to get all 7 or so of the 88 Fragnum's projectiles to crit on a consistent basis. Where if you were just using a generic slapper pistol, you may actually find that it's a lot easier to get the 1 or 2 projectiles to crit consistently. I also think that the slapper is generally a better choice when you're paired with the Howitzer class mod, which allows explosive weapons to perform at their best, provided the player is consistently landing critical hits. Given that the slapper's Torg barrel boosts base damage, you should be able to get some pretty impressive damage with the Howitzer class mod, and I've seen anywhere from 1 million to 3 million damage on a critical, provided that the enemy is frozen. Otherwise, there's not really a whole lot else to this weapon. If you can, try to get a slapper with the double penetrating prefix, as that's going to maximize your damage per shot. The slapper is a pretty great gun, and I think you're going to get a lot of use out of it. Number 8. The Company Man Shotgun. Wilhelm is actually quite good with Hyperion shotguns, as he can generally increase the fire rate of them to insane levels. Unfortunately, when it comes to Hyperion shotguns in the pre-sequel, you're mostly stuck with weapons that you simply can't obtain at all, or you have underwhelming legendaries like the Viral Marketer that are good, but would be better if they came in all elements. While the Company Man is difficult, if not impossible to reacquire after you've received one, it's still a pretty great shotgun with an improved magazine size and a relatively easy to predict projectile pattern. While it's sort of like the Heartbreaker in the sense that it's difficult to get each projectile to crit an enemy, the Company Man is still a great weapon to bullet spam on Wilhelm, provided that you have enough fire rate bonuses. Plus, if you have the Overdrive skill, you can regenerate some of your ammo on the fly, thus making the considerable amount of ammo consumption somewhat negligible. Obviously, the major downside to this weapon is acquiring it, let alone reacquiring it afterwards. In order to receive this weapon legitimately, you have to have the Tales from the Borderlands Season Pass and receive a shift code in order to unlock it. The lousy thing is that you can only do this one time, and provided you redeem the weapon too early, you may end up being stuck with an inferior low-level version. Once you've redeemed your shift code, you're going to have to receive the company man from someone else that has it and is willing to give theirs to you. Number 7. The Torg Rifle. When it comes to the best Torg assault rifle to use with the Howitzer class mod, I would say that the Torg rifle with the Vladoff barrel is it. Unfortunately, unlike most other non-unique Torg assault rifles, which have specific names like Torpedo or Root, the Vladoff barreled Torg rifle has just been given the generic name of a rifle. What makes this weapon nice when compared to most other rifles though is its increased fire rates. While you may not be able to deal as much damage per shot as something like the Root, Torpedo, or the Lance, I think you'll find this doesn't really matter once you're receiving the boost from the Howitzer class mod. Not only are you getting a multiplicative boost to your explosive damage, but you're also getting enhancements to your critical damage, potentially making you hyper lethal to most frozen enemies. Like the Slapper though, there's not a whole lot else to this gun, and if you would like one of these, you can obtain one from any suitable loot source. Number 6. The Splitter Laser. In Borderlands the pre-sequel, each manufacturer has their own take on the splitter. Dahl allows you to achieve burst fire, Hyperion tightens the projectile spread provided that you fire long enough, and the Tediore variants can be useful for Tediore reloads. However, for Wilhelm, I think the Maliwan variant of the splitter is likely the best choice, and this is because like all Maliwan lasers, this version of the splitter can benefit from continuous damage bonus. Aside from that though, the splitter is capable of some pretty insane damage output once you get enough fire rate bonuses from various skills like suppression, emergency response, and overcharge. Once you start adding in some of Wilhelm's other skills like Vengeance Cannon and or Laser Guided, enemies will pretty much get obliterated from the sheer amount of firepower. My only complaint about the Maliwan variant of the splitter is that the continuous damage bonus doesn't seem to go too high, as it appears to cap out at around 150%. If you would like one of these though, you're going to have to get lucky and see if you can find one from any suitable loot source. Number 5. The Railgun Laser. Like the splitter, each manufacturer has their own take on the railgun. Typically, Hyperion variants seem to be the most popular because of Hyperion's reverse recoil mechanic. However, I think you'll find that the best variant of the railgun goes to Dahl because of Dahl's burst fire gimmick. Not only do Dahl weapons gain burst fire while aiming down the sights, but the fire rate of the weapons increase as well, and this greatly enhances the effectiveness of the Dahl railgun as it has pretty low fire rate to begin with, and the fire rate increase while aiming down sights is extremely useful. The high initial accuracy of the railgun, when combined with this increased rate of fire, can prove to be extremely deadly to enemies, as one full volley of shots into an enemy's crit spot should be a death sentence. The railgun gets pretty powerful with many of Wilhelm's skills like escalation, targeting scope, suppression, emergency response, and overdrive, which can either further improve the railgun's critical damage or massively improve the fire rate to almost SMG or assault rifle-like levels. If you would like a railgun laser, they can be acquired from any suitable loot source. I've found that cryo versions tend to work the best, but you may find that you like the other elemental versions as well. Number 4. Canada's Laser Rocket Launcher. While not technically a laser, the Canada's Laser Rocket Launcher is a great weapon for Wilhelm, despite the fact that it doesn't benefit from the laser focus skill. If you're concerned about damage bonuses though, Wilhelm can increase the weapon's damage through skills that boost critical hit damage like escalation or targeting scope. And you can equip a Howitzer class mod to not only boost explosive damage, but boost the critical hit damage even further. Ultimately though, if you're looking for this great rocket launcher, you can acquire one at the very end of the CLAPTASTIC VOYAGE DLC when you receive the random legendary from Shadow Trap during the system shutdown quest. Number 3. The Rosie Laser. The Rosie is possibly the best laser in the game provided that you don't have any DLC. Not only is it fairly easy to acquire, as you just have to beat the pre-sequel on True Vault Hunter mode or higher, but it tends to be one of the best lasers due in large part to its very high continuous damage bonus. To put it in perspective, the Rosie has 368% continuous damage bonus, while most other Maliwan weapons tend to be in the 150% to 230% range. What's also fairly impressive is the fact that the Rosie is generally on par with most other Maliwan beam lasers in terms of base damage. The only two beam lasers with noticeably higher damage are the Bright Spot Rune, which has much lower range, and the Absolute Zero, which tends to have inferior magazine size. However, the one major downside to both of these weapons is that they're exclusive to a specific element, while the Rosie can come in any element. But again, if you want a thorny old Rosie, you'll just have to beat the game on True Voltimeter mode or higher, and I think you'll find that this is a pretty great weapon for Wilhelm. Number 2. The Ravager Shotgun. When it comes to shotguns for Wilhelm, I would argue that the Ravager is quite possibly one of the best ones available. While you can't necessarily bullet spam it like you can with Hyperion shotguns, you can boost its damage potential significantly with a Howitzer class mod. And like I've mentioned with the Torg rifle and Slapper pistol before, explosive weapons greatly benefit from some of the boosts to explosive and critical damage, thus allowing you to potentially deal massive amounts of damage to frozen enemies on criticals. Like the Torg rifle and the Slapper though, there's not really a whole lot else to this particular weapon, and it can be acquired in a much similar way. Just keep your eyes peeled and see if you can get a casual prefix version to drop from any suitable loot source. And finally, number 1, the Absolute Zero laser. So the Absolute Zero is one of, if not the strongest Maliwan lasers available. This is partially because it's based on the Thorny Old Rosie, and both share the same stats, except in a few key areas. For the sake of comparison, the Absolute Zero is a cryo-only laser, it has superior base damage, and has higher elemental effect chance, while the Rosie can come in any element, has higher continuous damage bonus, and a much higher magazine size. If I had to place a bet on which weapon is stronger though, I'd have to go with the Absolute Zero, and this is because the base damage of the Absolute Zero is roughly twice as high as the Rosie's. I also think that the Absolute Zero's high freeze chance is extremely useful as well, because it's very easy to freeze enemies with the Absolute Zero, opening them up to attacks with explosive weapons or Wilhelm's very own Power Fist. Speaking of Wilhelm, Wilhelm can also enhance the Absolute Zero's greatest efficiency, which is its magazine size. This is because if you have the laser focus skill, Wilhelm can double or triple the Absolute Zero's magazine size thanks to the fact that laser focus increases magazine size based on a finite number as opposed to a percentage-based bonus. At 5 out of 5 points, you should be able to increase your magazine size by 12, and at 11 out of 5 points with a Blaster class mod, that magazine size can now increase by 26. Ultimately, the Absolute Zero is one of the best weapons in the game, and since Wilhelm is generally pretty good with lasers, there is little reason not to use this gun on Wilhelm. If you want an Absolute Zero, you can acquire one from EOS in the CLAPTASTIC VOYAGE DLC. And I've also found that a great way to get this weapon is to receive it from Shadow Trap when you get a random legendary during the system shutdown quest. Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.